You have found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, of course, we're going to be previewing the Bulls game tonight against the Utah Jazz. Alex Caruso being probable to play and the growth that Patrick Williams has shown in the month of November. We'll get into all that and more right after this.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls. Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. That's Pat, the designer, host, and creator of the Windy City Breeze. I'm Haize, host, creator of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central. How's your weekend, brother?
Hey, man, not too bad, man. Not too bad. Had the family over on, what I had yesterday and stuff like that. Kicking it, big chilling. That's what we do, man. Yeah, I made a ham, made some mac and cheese. It was
That's what's up. That's what's up. Everybody got to watch the Bears get decimated by injury.
Listen, man, we ain't got to talk about that. We ain't got to talk about that. It tells you how much we need Justin Fields.
Shout out to Locked On Bears. Y'all go check out Locked On Bears. With that being said, the Bulls face Utah Jazz with an old Bull in Lauri Markkenan, who's having a career year right now. So let's break down that game, kind of our expectations, what we expect to see in that game. How you feeling about this game coming up, Pat?
I mean, listen, we've seen the Bulls kind of play to their competition, right? Unfortunately, this season, although I do think I'm a little bit different, right? That last game versus OKC, I was like, OKC is a better team than most people will give them credit for it, and their record speaks to. But we've seen the Bulls kind of struggle against teams below 500 and step up to the podium against teams above 500. This is a team that's well above 500, team that's doing a lot of good things offensively on the ball. It seems like they found that perfect role for Lauri Markkenan, which shout out to Lauri for finally finding somebody that's going to give him the role that he's going to be able to thrive in. And I was one of the few people this season, before the season started, that said the Utah Jazz might take a little bit of a step back, right? But they're not going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. And I didn't think they'd be one of the best teams in the NBA either. But I look at this team as a team that is well balanced. Haven't seen the injury report yet. Who do we know who's out and who's in outside or for Utah? I haven't seen the injury report for Utah. I know Bulls are missing Caruso and stuff like that. But
we may be missing Caruso. Lauri Markkenan is actually listed as day-to-day on their injury report. Leandro Balmero, who's been out since late November, him and Mike Conley are both listed as being out right now.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, you still got Colin Sexton, who is young bull for a reason, right? He's somebody that absolutely can attack. I don't know if we've seen an IO matchup with Sexton. Probably not, because he was out
Sexton
all last season.
Hurt. Yep.
Yeah, so this will be a first time that we'll get to see that. Be interesting to see what IO's able to do there, especially when down the stretch in the last game, right? Billy Donovan kind of went away from him in those big defensive moments. So, I think this is a game where the Bulls have to come out prepared to play. It seems like versus these top teams, they do come out a little bit more prepared to play. I think the Bulls match up well against the Utah Jazz, especially with, right, like when your big guy is Lauri Markkenan, he's matching up against P. Will. You know, like he's not gonna. Yeah, he's big up top. The legs are tiny. P. Will should be able to move him around a little bit. Hopefully, we'll get to see a little bit more from P. Will in this game. But yeah, I think the Bulls will come out ready to play. I think this will be a fun game, a down to the wire game, like many of the Bulls games have been this season. I actually think the Bulls will end up being able to come away with a win in this one. And we'll look back at it and we'll be like, man, I can't believe we lost to OKC. But in 4 games, we've beaten Boston, Milwaukee, and Utah. That's what I feel like we're going to have coming on the other side of this.
I mean, yeah, and the thing with this is that this Bulls team is going to have to play with intensity in all 4 quarters, and hopefully after having 2 days off, we see that. You don't want to overlook it. They still got Jordan Clarkson, who's a microwave who can get hot. We know Colin Sexton is a microwave and can get hot. Even Malik Beasley, THT, if he decides to, look like an NBA player on that day. It's possible. And also the thing that I'm looking at in this one is Jared Vanderbilt. And the reason why I'm looking at that matchup is because I think they're going to cross matchup kind of like what OKC did. Jared Vanderbilt is probably definitely going to be guarding DeMar DeRozan, which is going to put Lauri on Patrick Williams. And while Lauri's having a really good offensive season, he started off this season having a good defensive season as well. His defensive rating is in the toilet right now. And the way Patrick Williams is cooking, It's going to be interesting to see just how this matchup goes. And so, like, I do look at this and saying, hey, from top to bottom, this is going to be an interesting team. Now, you say that, the Bulls match up favorably. Walker Kessler is having a heck of a season coming off the bench as a rookie big.
Yeah.
And that matchup with him and Andre Drummond is going to be interesting. This is going to be a game that I really do think comes down to rebounding. I think that is going to be the story of this game is rebounding. Who wins that battle? Who gets more possessions? Because that can really dictate. I expect both teams to play well on the offensive end. I think I give the Bulls the edge defensively overall as a team, but that rebounding can really be the differentiator. And what we've seen even in the Bulls losses, when the Bulls do get out rebounded, it's hard for them to stay in games. So hopefully we see the double-digit Vooch, the double-digit Drummond in this game, and that team rebounding as well that we saw in both the Boston and the Milwaukee Bucks game, because if they do that, I think that's going to help the Bulls have some success for sure against the Utah Jazz.
I think the biggest thing is too, right? And I don't remember. I'm trying to find who dropped this stat. It was a fire stat on the timeline. But the one thing that I've seen from the Bulls this season that I think really dictates when they're able, got to say that the right way, don't you? When they're able to when they're able to dominate down low, and how they end up winning these games. But so just in a small sample size, here's the stat from Kevin Anderson from NBC Sports. Vucevic, when he takes 3 or fewer 3-point attempts, the Bulls are 4-3. When he takes 4 or more, the Bulls are 4-8. I don't think the Bulls realize like how much it impacts this team when you take Vooch out of the paint just for everybody else shooting the basketball, right? Like if Zach LaVine shoots the ball without Vooch in the paint, it's a one and done possession. If Zach LaVine shoots the ball with Vooch in the paint, you might be able to get 2. You might be able to get 3 shots out of that, right? And I think that's the part where you need to focus on, especially like you said, going up into this game against a Utah Jazz team that, listen, they're going to want blood here, but you have an opportunity to knock them out. They're on a 4-game losing streak right now. Usually when teams are on those 4-game, 5-game losing streaks, they buy into a little bit of the hype that is around them losing basketball games, right? If you come out like you did against OKC, you might actually be able to get them. And if you dominate them down low early on with Drummond, with Vucevic, right? Like I feel like that's an opportunity this season where you're going to see this Bulls team need to figure out, right, like, okay, this is where we have this advantage, but we need to use this advantage. And we haven't seen that enough this season. How many games have we seen Vooch just standing at the 3-point line? Granted, he's knocking them down at a better percentage this season, but it just doesn't lead to second and third chance opportunities for the Bulls. And especially against these teams, like you said, with Walker Kessler, with Lauri, guys that are going to be able to get down there and grab boards. You need to be able to compete with them on the boards, unless we're just relying on P. Will to go down there and try and grab every board that there is. Like that's not the Vucevic we signed up for here.
For sure. And we're catching the Utah Jazz when they are starting to come back down to earth. In their last 10, they are 3-7. We are also 3-7.
I was going to say we also 3-7.
We're also 3-7 in our last 10. But this team is they went from being number 1 team in the East first 2-3 weeks. I mean in the West, the first 2-3 weeks of the season, and now they're 8th in the West. That's how crazy. And Portland, who was number 1 to 2 in the West, is now 7th. So. It's going to be both teams. I think are going to be trying to come out, trying to prove that they're better than what their record shows. I hope that the Bulls can come out on top of this one, but you can definitely catch the Utah Jazz. They're only 2 games above 500 right now. A lot of their weaknesses are starting to be exposed, especially without Mike Conley being in there. And what we're seeing is that Mike Conley's ability to facilitate, which is a little bit better than Colin Sexton, we're seeing some of those players not have some of that success that they were having with Mike Conley on the floor. So this is an opportunity, especially if Ayo can win that defensive matchup, that the Bulls can kind of disrupt what Utah Jazz like to do offensively for sure.
Now, the biggest question is going to be, right, how are the Bulls going to perform on the road in this one for me? Because the Bulls on the road have not been good this season. We're 3-6 on the road. We're 5-3 in games decided by 10 points or more. So you know what I mean? Like we have to come out and attack this thing early on. The Jazz at home have been dominant. They're 6-2 at home. They've kind of gone on this losing streak and different things like on the road. They've had their toughest games on the road, and that's very indicative of a young team, right? And not to say that they're a young team like these guys haven't been in the NBA, but a young team, and you got a lot of young pieces trying to figure out where they fit together. Yeah, I'm going to be more comfortable at home. So you're going to have a Utah team that's a lot more comfortable in their own building, especially guys like that. That's huge, biggest for guys like you talked about, and Walker Kessler, somebody that me and you were both big on it.
Yeah.
at home, I'm gonna play better because they got my back.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is going to be a fun game to watch. Like I said, that Patrick Williams, Lauri matchup are the ones is the one I'm looking forward to the most.
For sure.
And then outside of that, just how this bench performs. This bench, as we came into the season, and the bench was good for even in losses, they were good for the most part of our game so far. Yeah. The bench really has not looked good for the last few games. Like even in our wins against Boston and Milwaukee, they stepped up when needed, and we got some big shots from the bench, definitely. But we haven't had the 30, 35, 28 points off the bench in a while. So, maybe this bench is on the bounce back as well.
Hopefully, man. I mean, you also have to take into account Dragic coming back from the injury. Javonte, I know a lot of people want to see more of him in that last game, but what was it, a back contusion or a spinal contusion? Like let
some type of contusion.
Some type of contusion of the back. That's not good for basketball.
So not good at all.
Hopefully they're healthy, man.
Yeah, hopefully for sure. All right, next up, we're going to talk about players that we may be missing and down one going into the next game. First, I got to talk to you guys about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., U.K., Canada, and Australia. Book a special SUV or minivan for a family trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. Test drive the new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com.
We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insight that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today. Ooh, had a stroke there. Available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Y'all see me have a stroke right there in the middle of that read? Good Lord.
Hey, that nap didn't do you good there.
That nap did not help, bro. The Bears still got me. The Bears still got me. That's the worst part about doing sports talk for a living. You can always just be like, I'm done with this and turn the TV off. But you're not going to get the full picture. And sometimes the fourth quarter moments are the moment where you have the best epiphany on a game or something like that. So I always force myself to just fight through the worst moment.
But with that said, it seems like Alex Caruso is listed as probable. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to miss the game because Javonte was listed as doubtful.
Or doubtful. Probable.
He's listed as probable right now. Javonte was listed as doubtful, and he played in the last game. So we'll see what that means. But I'm going to ask you this. You did mention how it seems like Billy Donovan has gone away from Io in key defensive matchups. He's even put Alex Caruso in there in place of P. Will. If we end up missing Alex Caruso in this game, how detrimental do you think that is to the Bulls and what they need to do defensively against this Utah Jazz team?
I actually look at it differently. I think it forces you to do something that it forces Billy Donovan to do something that he's been very reluctant to do, and that's play P. Will more. P. Will's gotten a lot of these minutes, right? End of last 3 minutes of the game, last few minutes of a blowout. He's played crucial moments. I actually think that, right, and we'll talk about P. Will's comments on kind of where he feels he's at. I think this is an opportunity for P. Will to step up, to take the first step towards the player that he wants to be, because
you stepping on the last topic there, brother. You're talking a lot of people.
No, I'm just saying, right? It forces Billy Donovan to leave him in here and let him cook.
Yeah.
In this situation, because there's nobody else. Who else you gonna go to defensively? You're gonna have P. Will and DJJ. Those are your last two lines of defense right there. Javonte, you just said was doubtful.
No, Javonte's off the injury report.
Dog, I swear you just said Javonte Green was doubtful.
No, I said he was doubtful in the last game, and he still ended up playing.
Okay. I thought you were saying he was doubtful for this game.
No.
I don't know what reports you got, but I ain't see that. But
I appreciate you riding for me anyway, though, brother. I appreciate you riding for me anyway.
Okay, well, yeah. Then if you got Javonte, I feel like right in those moments, right, without Caruso out there, Of course, you've got Ayo still on the court, but if you want to go with that full-on defensive lineup, Caruso's a big part of those lineups. I would like to see P. Will get more of those minutes, get more of those opportunities, and stop taking him off the court when he's doing well. And I think it kind of forces Billy into a corner unless he decides to go DJJ again, like he did in the what game was that? Was that OKC? Or was that a game we lost? No, it might have been Boston. Maybe that was the Boston game where I was just like, what the heck is DJJ doing out there?
Yeah. It's so funny.
And he played well. I couldn't be mad.
Yeah,
He played well.
He comes in with some really good defense. It's just weird how it seems like Billy Donovan is going back into the moving away from players when they're hot. Like, you remember last season where it was he went away from the hot hand so often, and it's like, hey man, what are you doing, bro?
And now it's a rotating hot hand, and it feels like in these last, like a lot of the losses the Bulls have, he's consistently gone away from whoever it is. It's not just Vooch this time anymore. Now, like I think that's the one part, right, where I always talk about, right, with the players. You go back to what's comfortable for you. When you go through struggles, when you go through your trials, when you go through your issues, you go back to what's comfortable. Okay, we can shoot the three ball. Zach LaVine especially, right? He can knock down the three, so he's gonna take it. And if it's not falling, he's uncomfortable with getting in other positions, so he's gonna take it. I say the same thing about Billy Donovan, at least early on in this season, right? We saw a team that was looking different and the players playing differently. And I feel like Billy Donovan hasn't forced the uncomfortableness on them, which then in turn tells me that he's not comfortable with being uncomfortable either in these moments, because he doesn't go to Vooch. He doesn't go to his advantages. He doesn't keep P. Will in there when he's playing well. He doesn't go to Zach LaVine down the stretch when he's knocking down the shot. Although I can't say that as much this season. Zach be taking some shots. But, like I agree with you. I feel like Billy has the same. I feel like the team this season to me is very indicative of the kind of coach that Billy Donovan has been this year. And so in those moments where you're forced to be uncomfortable, I'm not looking at Caruso possibly being out as a, man, how are we going to replace this? I'm looking at that as, more minutes for the dude that wants to get more minutes. Let's roll with that.
That's fair. At all, how much are you? Because that means if Alex Caruso is out again, we're having this conversation. If he is out, I do think he's more than likely to play. But how concerned are you for now the bench rotation with having Goran and Kobe White out there together with no Caruso? Because that's almost what we go to from the bench.
I mean, we've got our guys, and again against the Utah Jazz. I feel confident putting DJJ out there. Right, like I said, like the DJJ, I guess it is kind of slander, but the DJJ slander isn't because, air quotes on that for the podcast listener, isn't because we don't think DJJ can play. It's because we want to see more P. Will, right? So, like, I think if you put DJJ out there, he'll be able to give you some good minutes out there. I think if you put Javonte out there, he'll be able to give you some good minutes out there. So I think there's some different guys that you can work into that lineup with Kobe White, with Goran Dragic. Even, right, like if you throw Zach LaVine out there, you want to go full on offense, and maybe you go Drummond and one other guy for defense on that lineup, right? Like, I think there's some options that Billy can go with that you still feel really good about defensively. It's just not Alex Caruso, who's been really good defensively this season,
and his shooting starting to come
in moments, and now his shooting is starting to fall when he's getting the wide open look. So I don't think that it's the end of the world if Caruso's not there, because I don't think that it's the same team like we had last season where we look out there and we're like, who else can play defense, because all of our defenders were hurt.
Yeah. And I think too, like you made a great point to start, is that it forces Billy Donovan to kind of rely on people. And that is you like I don't want to use the word stunt, but I feel like not having or not allowing Ayo and Patrick Williams to be out there in some of those crunch moments is in a way limiting their growth in those moments. You have to play in those moments to learn how to play in the big moments, and especially as hopefully we do become a playoff team, because right now we're outside of that. You're going to need and build that resiliency up once you get to the playoffs. So hopefully, this does force it, and hopefully they perform well in it and earn some of Billy Donovan's trust. So that way going forward, it's now this hesitation of like, hey, I want Caruso out here because of the defensive versatility, but I'm probably gonna have to leave Io and Patrick Williams out there as well, because we'll talk about Patrick Williams here in the next segment, because Patrick Williams, defensively especially, is doing some special things, and we're gonna talk about that next.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. But before we do get into that, though, hey, we got to tell you guys about Prize Picks. Here's the thing. You want to go into the nice game, right? You could be taking Lauri Markkenan to score more than 26.5 points. Or maybe you're going to take Nikola Vucevic to have more than 7.5 rebounds. Or maybe even Zach LaVine to have over 6.5 assists. You can do all of that over on Prize Picks. How does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than the Prize Pick projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus projections available. Prize Pick offers projections on sports worldwide. Anything that you might watch includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college football, etc. They got cricket on there, dog. They got cricket. When's the last time you watched a cricket match? Notice I said match. I know what it is, but I've never watched one. Here's the thing. Entries can be made in 60. Actually, you probably have watched quite a few cricket matches, haven't you? I forgot you were raised in Italy. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in 30 states. And, of course, got to include Canada in there. All you got to do, download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, Prize Picks will give you 100. If you deposit 50, Prize Picks will give you 50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100.
All right, there you have it. So we touched on Patrick Williams a little bit. He had this interview with KC Johnson, and we're going to use this as a launching pad to just talk about the growth that he's had in the month of November and if it can be sustained. But he said this to KC Johnson: I told you I was going to figure it out. I think I'm still figuring it out, but I'm 100% locked in on being the player I want to be. I've always felt like I had what it took to be a really good player in this league, but now I'm starting to feel like I have what it takes to be a star and superstar in this league. I'm kind of trying to take that role on and build on it day by day. Now, we talked a lot about Patrick Williams' confidence kind of being the thing that was holding him back. You hear these comments, Pat. How are you taking this, brother?
We agree with you. if any show said it, we said it here first, right? Patrick Williams' mentality, his aggressiveness, his ability to go out there and be the P. Will that we think he can be on a night in, night out basis. What did I say? It's the difference between you living up to the Kawhi expectation or you being Otto Porter Jr. And listen, he's slowly grown his game. Play by play. He's slowly growing his game by game. He's adding something to it. He's shooting the 3 ball incredibly efficiently. He's attacking the rim at a much higher base. I think he finally realized he's also like 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan, because now all of a sudden he's rising up on dudes. And the one part that a lot of times people might not even think about, right? How did he break his wrist last year? Trying to dunk on somebody.
Yeah.
So
on Mitchell Robinson, right?
He on was it Mitchell Robinson or was it Isaiah Stewart? Somebody that's a tryhard.
Yeah.
But it was, to me, right, like he was attacking or like mentally that has to do something to you. I went up trying to be aggressive, trying to be big, and I broke my wrist that way, or somebody broke my wrist that way. I don't want to risk that early on in the season. We're starting to see him attack the rim a little bit more. I don't think anybody ever thought that P. Will didn't have the intangibles, didn't have the size, didn't have, maybe some people didn't think he had the ability, I should say, right, to be that level of player. But the biggest thing for us was just, are you mentally going to be that level of player? Are you mentally going to live up to the number 4 pick in the draft? Are you mentally going to be able to take that on? Or are you going to be Luol Deng, which is not a bad player at all, which is a top bull in our history, right? But as a role player, a really good role player on a team that you wanted Luol possibly to be more and just never was.
You look at the month of November for Patrick Williams, which is going to give you some raw stats. 11.3 points per game, 1.4 blocks per game, 1.2 assists per game, 5.2 rebounds, 93% shooting from free throw, 50% shooting from 3, 51% shooting overall from the field. Those are extremely good numbers. And doing that still all on 8 shots per game. He's not even getting that many more shots. That's how much more efficiently he's been with this shooting. And then to take that a little bit further, these are a little bit of nerd stats. 61% true shooting from the field. But you know what? Let's just take that away, right? I want to talk about him defensively for a while because there's so much conversation on Patrick Williams his natural position's a 3. He's not really a 4. Let's talk about his rim defense. He's holding opponents right now at the rim.
Let me get out your way, brother. You do what you do.
At the rim, he is holding opponents to shoot 5.3% less than what they do. That is good enough for the 70th percentile in the NBA. Guess what? Also, his block percentage. He has a block percentage of 3.7. You know what that's good enough for? Almost 90th percentile in the NBA. His rim frequency, meaning the percent that he even allows players to get to the rim when he's guarding them, is 30%, which sounds higher, which is still good enough for the 60th percentile in the NBA. We are seeing Patrick Williams grow into his role of being the power forward and excelling at it. I took the offense. I can throw more nerd offensive stats at you. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to bore you guys to death anymore. But when you hear that, Pat, how does that make you feel about the growth and development of Patrick Williams?
I wasn't even listening. No, I'm just playing. No, you know what it tells me? It tells me that P. Will, like I said, we agree with you. P. Will is realizing what he can do. And listen, he's slowly working his game in. And it also tells me, right, like sometimes it takes guys time to get into their rhythm inside of an NBA season. Not to say that I wouldn't be concerned if we came out of this road trip with a losing record, but these guys are slowly working themselves into form. And P. Will is absolutely doing that. He's taken a step every single month to this point. Now, it's only been 2 months, right? But if he continues on this trajectory, you're going to see him getting more looks. You're going to see him getting more touches. You're going to see him getting more time with the ball in his hands. You're going to see him attacking more. You could see a pivot to the Chicago Bulls mid-season if they allow it. And I think that that's the part where the growth of Patrick Williams, while we're as excited as we can be about it, we also can say that there's been some holdback from the organization on P. Will doing more, right? That Boston game, the New Orleans game we can talk about, the Milwaukee game we can talk, like how many times do we look up and we're like, where the heck is P. Will? Yeah. Hey, there's a large dude dribbling the basketball and Alex Caruso's guarding him. Where the heck is P. Will? So I think that, right, I believe P. Will can live up to a lot of the expectations that at a minimum this season we put upon him, right? Like I just said, listen, you give me 15 points a game and you're one of the best defenders in the NBA. That tells me all I need to know. You've taken a solid step. I think he can get to that if the Bulls allow him to get to that.
The thing that's concerning that supports what you say as well. So in the first quarter of games so far, Patrick Williams has taken 42 shots in first quarters. Mm-hmm. He's taken 40 shots in second quarters. He's taken 32 shots in third quarters. He's only taken 27 total shots in the fourth quarter of games. He's still shooting that at a 48% clip. But that's crazy. What you say?
You can't shoot if you're not out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? Like you can't shoot if you're not out there.
And the funny thing is that by percentage, even like again, low volume, so it's not going to stay there. But how do you have a player that you need three-point shooting on your team that's averaging 50% from three-point range and you don't have him out there in fourth quarters of big games when you need shots and runs? How many times do we have to keep kicking it out to a corner three to Javonte, who is hit and miss on it when you have Patrick Williams sitting right there who's shooting it at a 50% clip?
I think here's the one thing that I will say, that a very small defense of Billy Donovan, because this season, right, we've been very like on Billy, like you got to do more. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to lose trust than it is to build trust, right?
That's a great point.
And when you come into this season and you look at P. Will, and yeah, he might have had to work himself into form, but the mental part of it wasn't there yet. He wasn't being aggressive. He wasn't doing more, right? Like when you saw him do it, you were like, hey, nobody can like stand in front of you and make you miss. But he wasn't doing that. He wasn't taking shots. He wasn't, right? So like Billy Donovan probably comes into this season, started the season, and says, I need guys out there that are going to take shots. And you have to prove to me that you're going to take shots. He lost that trust very quickly in the season to the point where we weren't even seeing P. Will He got benched for a game, right? He got benched, what, 2 games or something like that? Didn't he end up
I think
getting
it was
benched?
only one.
Was it only one? Maybe,
I
something
think
like that.
he got benched 2 in the preseason, but I think he's only been no. Yeah, he started every game so far this season.
Has he? Okay,
Yeah,
so maybe it was just like he wasn't getting tick.
Yeah,
I know he wasn't
the
getting
15-minute game. Yeah,
he was getting 15 minutes in the game and stuff like that. Like, that's Billy Donovan saying, hey, when you're out there, you show me what you can do, and you'll slowly work your way back into this full-on rotation. But until then, and I'm not mad at that because, right, like, yeah, I'm seeing more from you now, and yeah, you're doing more, but like, what's the thing that's going to keep you hungry? What's the thing that's going to keep you, like, if I just give you everything right back, what does that do for you? You might turn back into the player that you once were. So the fact that we're doing this in the beginning of the season, I like that we're seeing that at a minimum, but I would like to see people out there. I think, right, like, at the end of the day, if you're gonna like try and keep him to that 25-30 minute mark, which it seems like the Bulls have been, you need him out there when he's gonna be the most useful for you. And whether he's scoring or not, he's a better option defensively on Jason Tatum and Brandon Ingram than Alex Caruso is. He just is, bro. Like, it's not even like Caruso's a bad defender. He's great. But 6'11" versus 6'6" is a big difference. So
yeah,
I feel like you got to do a little bit more to put P. Will on the court in those moments. But even that, right? Maybe that's just building that trust back up, trusting that I can have you out there in those fourth quarter moments.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, at the end of the day, he took the challenge and the, you know, getting his minutes cut, and we're seeing him respond in a major way, and not only respond positively, but he's growing his game, and that leaves a lot to, you know, a lot of hope left with P. Will, whereas at the beginning of the season, a lot of that hope had left with him because of the regression, especially defensively, that he showed. So it's good to see P. Will just respond in that way, man.
100%. Like, hey, listen, live up to the words that you said. That's all I said. The one thing that we've seen from this Bulls team a lot, they talk a lot.
They talk a lot, bro. A lot. They say, and it sounds all great. It sounds great.
I mean, man, it's that they are a fire rap album. Yeah. But when pressed in real life, it don't always go that way.
Exactly. For sure. But that is it for us for today, brother. What you got left, man?
Hey, man, follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. Follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. You can catch me live calling the game over on the Windy City Breeze. So tune in with us on that. And we got a heck of a lot of post-game shows going on around here.
That's for sure. That's for darn sure. You can follow me at CEO Haize, the CEO Haize. And thank you for making Locked On Bulls your first listen. Now for your next listen, check on Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. For Pat the Designer, I'm Haize. This is Locked On Bulls. We out, y'all. Peace.
Yeah. Thought I wasn't going to do it.